Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm grateful for that. Let me start by reminding you of the MindSpeak session with His Excellency Jacques Peterloo. That's uploaded. That link is on the website if you care to take a look. I like this photograph from Politico of Vladimir Putin at this BRICS Bank SCO UFA summit. And Chinua also tweeted a photograph of the entrance to the summit building. Of course, the subject came up in Inside Story with Darine Abugeda, and that link is also there as well. And I think what was interesting, actually, luckily I got to say quite a few things in the early minutes about the Chinese stock market, the price of oil, and a number of other things. Macro thoughts. China has banned major shareholders from selling their stakes for the next 6 months. Holger tweeted, the Great Fall arrested for now as China bans shareholders from cutting stakes for 6 months. Zero Hedge tweeted irreverently, I shorted, and put up the photograph of the man standing up to Tiananmen Square, to the tanks in Tiananmen Square. Webster Tarpley, who I listen to occasionally and is known as a conspiracy theorist, tweeted early this morning, US-Vietnam cooperation seen as threat by China as Hanoi leader visits Obama. Beijing thinks US shorted PRC markets may explain NYSE shutdown. And I concluded by saying the US and its erstwhile community organizer Barack Obama have been seriously sophisticated in their ability to wage financial warfare. If Webster is to be believed, and this was a topic of my own MindSpeak in January, and I'll put that link up there, and I was talked about Vladimir Putin, Barack Obama, I called him a 21st century oil warfare specialist, crude oil, a Europe of balance, Giuseppe, Charlie, Adam Curtis, Andy Warhol, an arrhythmic world, MH370, Kurkov, Ukraine, how images contaminate us, ISIS, Iran, Hassan Rouhani, Lagarde, the mobile phone, how the street in Africa now has a voice, Indian Ocean economy, and what was then still the Teflon shelling. Nanix LLC, which is Mr. Hunsader, tweeted, trades from New York Stock Exchange drop sharply, sputter a few minutes, then nothing, each dot, an NYSE trade. Home Thoughts, Z News, tweeted, endangered species snow leopard spotted for the first time in Kumaon, Himalayas. And that took me back to Il Gottardo, The Leopard by Giuseppe Tomasi de Lampedusa. If we want things to stay the same, things will have to change, he says. I'll put up a photograph of a leopard in a tree that I took in the Samburu 1,173 days ago. Another quote from Il Gottardo, we were the leopards, the lions, those who'll take our place will be little jackals, hyenas, and the whole lot of us, leopards, jackals, and sheep, will all go on thinking ourselves the salt of the earth. I also put up a photograph of a leopard in the grass that I took in Lewa 1,599 days ago. We're returning to Lewa in a couple of weeks, and I'll tell you where at the end. I'm looking forward to that. I like this photograph that President Obama tweeted on July the 5th. And I think this hardline approach taken by some politicians here in Kenya to LGBT rights is out of line and out of step with the visit. Nairobi News tweeted, love is love, Obama will talk about homosexuality in Kenya, the White House says. And then the Daily Maverick has an interesting article, Africa and Homosexuality, where science meets morality. While gay rights have been spearing a wave of human rights advances in Western democracies, most recently the extension of marriage to include same-sex marriage in the US and Ireland. In Africa, the trend is moving in the opposite direction. Laura Rosen has tweeted, White House announced POTUS call with US negotiators, got framework, White House announced NSC POTUS call with US negotiators, Iran talks, and then asked, are these final instructions to seal the deal? And then I got this from the Asia Times describing these negotiations. Even for a word or sometimes a preposition, we have to spend a full 2-hour meeting on the technical level. And I know the Iranians, and they are very, very meticulous negotiators. Quartz says Pamela Anderson has written a letter to Vladimir Putin. I just felt like putting up a photograph of her because in my younger days she was quite a totemic figure, and it's still looking good, I must admit. UNHCR news breaking: exodus from Syria is highest recorded since 1992, when number of refugees from Afghanistan hit a staggering 4.6 million. And I take you back to WikiLeaks on July the 7th, which tweeted, Saudi cables, Syrian regime must be overthrown to avoid revenge for what we've done to them. International markets, BRICS 2015, informal dinner for BRICS leaders on behalf of the President of Russia. Put up this photograph, which I'm sharing. Lavrov said BRICS illustrates a new polycentric system of international relations, demonstrating the increasing influence of new centers of power. Ian Bremmer tweeted The Economist's outstanding Greek timeline. Good way of fixing what's events have happened, because sometimes when you're right up against the real time, you forget to look at the continuum. Holger again, the rift between Greece and Germany keeps growing as Greek and German 10-year yields show. You can see there's been a massive blowout. 2-year yields as per yesterday had topped 57%. Currency markets, the euro actually topped 111 a little bit earlier. It's now back down at 110.63. Dollar index around 96.35. Japanese yen 121.46. Swissy 0.9440 when I checked last. The pound 154.02. The Australian dollar is 0.7474. Indian rupee has been beacon of stability in these turbulent times, 63.565. South Korean won 1132.73, the Real 323.65. Egyptian pound has been on the slide, 782.75, and the Rand 1249.85 when I looked last. I'll put up a 6-month chart of the dollar index, and I remain bullish about that. I think they might delay a rate hike, but the story of the U.S. economy is a stronger one, and I expect this dollar index to top 100 again and then hit to 110. Euro dollar, as I said, last trading 110.57 now. I don't see it being able to sustain any meaningful rallies. 114.50 tops, and I don't know what's going to take it there, but I think we're headed down to 0.94, 0.92. Satellite images show economies growing and shrinking in real time. Some 250 miles above the Earth, a flock of shoebox-sized dove satellites is helping to change our understanding of economic life below. In Myanmar, night lights indicate slower growth than World Bank estimates. In Kenya, photos of homes with metal roofs can show transition from poverty. In China, trucks in factory parking lots can indicate industrial output. Images from these and other satellites combined with big data software are helping to create what former NASA scientist James Crawford calls a macroscope, to see things that are too large to be taken in by the human eye. Aid organizations can use the results to distribute donations. Investors can mine them to pick stocks. This is one of those really rare game changers that come along very infrequently, but has the ability to make the whole stock and economic research industry We still make monetary policy in this country based on surveys of a few thousand households and businesses. I one day look forward to having a meal at this restaurant called Wolvesden. I think it's out of LA. And this, I think, must be one of the final courses in a 13-course meal underground supper club. Commodity markets, gold were last trading at 1163. I remain bearish. I think you sell rallies. Crude oil, a bit of a bounce going on here. Last time I checked, $52.49 or thereabouts. I think we're going to 44. Holger again, China crash to become burden for global economy. Copper, which is, and he's put up a chart of copper, have a look at it, that's been in a slump as well. Nanex, putting China's stock market in context using the largest US-based ETF. Have a look at his chart, you'll see that, for all the hullabaloo, it still remains higher, considerably higher. Shanghai Composite Index has fallen almost 32%, dropping more than 5% on some days. On July 8, about 1,300 companies halted trading in their stocks on mainland exchanges, freezing $2.6 trillion worth of shares, or 40% of the stock market capitalization. To the stock market rout, the worst mainland market slump since 1992 has been an embarrassment to Xi and Premier Li Keqiang, who have vowed to push through more than 300 reforms aimed at reducing state intervention and letting market forces play a bigger role in China's $10 trillion economy. Chinese stocks made a 150% run from July 2014 through June 12. State-controlled media urged individual investors to buy and characterized the stock boom as an affirmation of Xi's policies. This is a real testing moment for the leadership. The evaporation of fortunes of more than 80 million individual investors pose unthinkable social problems for the country. And I wrote about this over the weekend when I said over in China the bull market is now being mauled by the bears. I said consider that there are more individual investors in the Chinese stock market than there are Communist Party members. And you will appreciate that this stock market crash represents probably the biggest political risk to the neo-totalitarian Xi Jinping. I think that's what's the point. I put up a photograph of him that Quartz published, and I like it. I'll also put up a photograph now of President Pierre Nkurunziza, where this is the president of Burundi, who's standing for election on July the 15th, and all points to a re-election, actually. The danger is that the post-election period will be filled with protests and street violence, and I think that's going to be a serious challenge. Hannah McNeish, saluting freedom and dignity on the eve of South Sudan's 4th birthday. President Kiir gifts himself 3 more years in power. Yesterday, Riek Machar was quoted by SABC News as giving Kiir a 12-hour quit ultimatum. South African all-share bounced 0.48%, regained the 50,000 level yesterday. Dollar rand around the 12.50 level, but headed lower in my view. Egyptian pound last trading at 782.75. That's come under a lot of pressure of late. Egyptian stock market's been walloped, down 2.6% yesterday, and now at 17-month lows, down 15.415% year to date. Nigerian all-share is at 17-week lows and it closed down 6.57% for the year. Tom Boker, who I follow on Twitter, we no longer project that Mozambique will exhibit high per capita growth for a country at its stage of development. This is Standard & Poor's. Downgrading Mozambique to B-, very downbeat assessment of the country. Ematum restructure could be tantamount to default, they said. Greece contagion reaches East Africa as Tanzania loan is delayed. Tanzania Central Bank shelved plans to raise $600 million through a private placement managed by Rand Merchant Bank of South Africa, citing fallout from the Greek debt crisis. We have postponed, Joseph Masawe, head of economic research and policy at the Bank of Tanzania. Because of the Greece default, conditions attached to the loan are going to be more stringent. We are waiting when market conditions are better. Central banks said last month it agreed to raise $800 million of loans from Rand Merchant and China Development Corporation to bolster its foreign exchange reserves and plug a budget deficit. The Tanzanian shilling has slumped 23% against the dollar this year, Africa's worst performing currency in that period, according to Bloomberg. Government has received $200 million from the China Development Bank, in addition to $100 million from the World Bank and $77 from the African Development Bank. They spent $410 million between January and May trying to stabilize the Tanzanian shilling, the Sawa said. And to go back to an interview I did on the BBC, have a look at that, where they were asking, has the crisis in Greece had a knock-on effect in Africa? And I was saying essentially yes. And that link is on Rich Wrap-Ups and on the front of the website. And I also wrote a piece on the 8th of June when I was speaking about the sub-Saharan African currency bloodbath. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 3.36% year to date. Mohamed Wellier tweeted this diagram is a 10% depreciation year to date against the dollar and a 10% appreciation against the Uganda shilling, a double whammy. Kenya shilling is around the 100.5 level. I'm not bullish that we're going to see a significant improvement post the second rate hike. I think external pressures are too great now, and people are not looking at the interest rate structure, they're looking at the principal structure. Are we going to get our money back? And in that environment, I think the shilling will continue to trade lower, I'm afraid. Nairobi all share down 1.62% in 2015 and is now at 2015 lows. Nairobi NSE 20 is down 6.84% year to date and just 17.92 points above a multi-year low from June the 11th this year. Top 10 safari camps for elephant viewing. I love elephants, and they've marked Lewa Wildlife Conservancy in northern Kenya. Breathtakingly beautiful, with rolling hills, views of Mount Kenya, open plains, and marshes surrounded by yellow fever trees. Sirikoi, and we're going there not this weekend, the following weekend, is an exceptionally special luxury safari camp boasting both tents and 2 private houses. From Sirikoi, you can often watch family groups of elephant come down to drink at the waterhole in front of camp. And once you head out into the plains with your private Samburu guide, you will be treated to huge vistas, often dotted with family groups of elephants. Lewa Wildlife tweeted a photograph, which I'm going to put up, and it looks pretty marvellous. Let's just give you some commentary about the stock exchange. The central bank governor, this is what I wrote yesterday, burnished his inflation-busting credentials with a further 150 basis points strike. The shilling is around 100.25, that was yesterday. I feel we might see a small short covering rally, but that external spillover, Greece, China meltdown and others, will mean the shilling still targets 107, the intraday low from 2011. The shilling, while over 100 and minus 10% year to date, has in fact rallied more than 10% versus the Uganda shilling and most of its sub-Saharan African peers. I said yesterday crude oil is in ragged retreat. Obviously it's got a little bounce going today, and I'm convinced we'll print fresh 2015 lows below $44 a barrel in New York in due course, which would help our current account deficit. I was talked about how Chinese stocks went into meltdown. They bounced this morning, and saying markets remain very nervous. Emerging markets and frontier assets bearing the brunt as investors pile into safe havens such as the Swiss franc, the yen and the dollar. Nairobi all share fell 0.847% yesterday, big drop. It's now down 1.62% year to date. NSE 20 slumped 52.41 points, and as you know, just marginally off its multi-year low. Africa caught up with the M-Pesa story, I was basically saying I think it's a silly policy to penalize success, but if push comes to shove, they can spin off M-Pesa and extract substantial value from that spin-off. Uchumi's series of announcements over the last 36 hours. We made an attempt to expand faster than our capabilities, and we will be taking a pit stop in terms of branch and country expansion. The known unknown is how big the gap is that's going to appear out of this forensic audit. Most people think about 3 billion shillings. 2.2 billion will be raised from selling land in Saharan. I think it's a takeover target. Equity Group has seen tremendous volume of late, retreated 2.17% yesterday, to minus 10% year to date. KCB, buyers outpacing sellers, although it retreated marginally in yesterday's session. Britam now down 36.97% year to date. EABL, which is down 12.61% 4 weeks through yesterday morning, stabilized, but it's a very sharp, precipitous drop, frankly uncalled for in my view. Once again, thanks for stopping by.